What's up, everybody? We're here to go over UFC Vegas 86, Jack Hermannson taking on Joe Pyfer. But real quick, man, as far as the results for the last card, they were not good. It was a pretty bad card for me. I had two bets on that card, and neither of them hit. None of the parlays hit or anything. So, I mean, at least I wasn't super invested in that card, man. Normally, I usually have 3 or 4 units on a card. I only had two on that one, so I mean, I guess it could have been worse. First real bad card I've had in a while, so it happens. But yeah. So I don't know if what when I was watching the fights last time, I didn't actually get to see the main event. I had a big fire going out in the back and my projector out there and stuff, and I was drinking some beer, having a good time. And by the time the main event rolled around, I was pretty much ready to go to bed. So I only saw the first round of the main event. I haven't gone back and watched it yet. I just know that Sean Strickland lost, and I had to play on him. So either way, but I had people telling me that it was a robbery. Sean should have won. I had people saying that Dricus won. It sounds like it was a close fight either way. But I definitely think they should run it back if it was that close of a fight. Dana White said he scored it for Sean Strickland, so I'd like to see him run it back, but they probably won't. But yeah, so yeah, please like and subscribe, guys. It really helped me out a lot. I really appreciate all the new subscribers, man. I've been picking up a lot lately, getting pretty close to 600. It's a big deal for me, and I just passed my 1 year anniversary of doing these videos. So yeah, but please like and subscribe, man. And what I do if you're new to the channel is I go through and I give out all my picks for each of the fights, and then at the end of the video, I give out my bets, and I give out all my bets for free. I want to see everybody win money. That's the goal. And hopefully one day, this channel will be something big enough to where a lot of people, can make money with me and stuff. So hoping for that, man. And if you're not interested in watching my videos, you just want to see my picks and my bets, you can go to my social medias. Highkick_fight picks is TikTok and Instagram. And then there's a Facebook group, High Kick Fight Picks on Facebook. Pretty easy to find. If I remember, I'll post the link to the group in the comments. And feel free to, if you're a part of that group or if you join the group, feel free to post all your bets and stuff in there, man. I want to see everybody's stuff. I don't want to just see myself posting bets over and over again in the Facebook group. That's meant to be for everybody, and like I said, I want to see everybody win money. So I'd like to see everybody's bets too, and maybe I can find something that I can make money on. Anything else? Anything else? I think that's it, man. So let's get into this card. We right off the bat, we lost a fight, man. I think that they just announced this yesterday that Bagdasarian and Emil will not be fighting. This is the second opponent that Emil has had fall out for this fight, so I don't know if if they'll find him a replacement or if he's just out of luck, So, but anyways, first up we got Balaji Oki taking on Damir Hadzovic. And Oki is 28 years old. He's 5'10" with a 73-inch reach. He is 8-1, and this is going to be his UFC debut. He's a -275 favorite, and there's still money pouring in on him. He has 5 knockouts and 1 submission on his record. So, most of his wins have been by finish. Good at managing distance with his lead hand. Uses his jab very well. Very nice counter striking. He finished a very high-level striker in his last fight. A guy who had a really extensive Muay Thai and kickboxing background. And finished him on the feet, and it was very impressive, man. And he throws nice combinations, very quick hands, big power, throws great shots to the liver. He has the advantages on the feet here with his speed and power, honestly. He honestly may be better everywhere in this matchup. Oki's going to have a 3-inch reach advantage in this match, and he's almost 10 years younger than his opponent. And he has the option, man. We've seen Hadzovic in some of his past fights get taken down. Mark Diakese did that to him. And I think if Oki wanted to, he has the option. So we're just keep that in mind. He's taking on Damir Hadzovic. He is 37 years old, 5'9" with a 70-inch reach. He is 14-7 and 4-5 in the UFC. And he's a +220 underdog. 7 wins by knockout, 3 wins by submission. He's 2-3 in his last 5 fights, and his last win was over a guy who was on a 3-fight losing streak already, who then got cut from the UFC after that fight. What advantages does he have in this fight? He has the UFC experience. He's probably fought the tougher competition. He uses his calf kicks very well. He can get a bit reckless in his striking, man, which would play well into the counter striking style of Oki's. Um, he's a tough veteran for sure. He tends to throw everything into all his shots, which wears on his gas tank. Likes to throw big flurries when he blitzes in on guys. Mark Diakese was able to take down Demir easily, so Oki may have the option, like I said, and if he needs it, I don't know that he'll need it though, man. And to prove that point, Demir shows 35% takedown defense, lands and absorbs about the same amount of strikes at 3.36 and 3.26 per minute on average. He shows 56% takedown accuracy. As long as Oki fights smart, and knows the takedowns will be there if he needs them, I think he will win this fight. Honestly, this fight will probably play out on the feet. I think Oki has the more technical striking and the power advantage, so I'm going to be taking Oki to win this fight by second round knockout. Um, but I do think that if it's not going his way on the feet, he'll be able to get the takedowns if he wanted. Because Mark Diakese is not some he's not a guy that comes from a wrestling background, so he's just a guy that has okay wrestling that's been working on it, and he could get Hadzovic down. Oki might be able to do it too, so I think he's got this fight all the way around here. Next up, we got Zach Pauga taking on Bogdan Guskov. And Zach is 35 years old. He's 6'2" with a 76-inch reach. He is 6-2 and 1-2 in the UFC, and he's a minus 150 favorite. So the first thoughts on this matchup when I look at it are, okay, everyone on Tapology is going with Guskov, yet Pauga is the favorite on the betting line. Also, Guskov looked terrible in his last fight, but he jumped all the way, to the top 10 of the light heavyweight division for his first fight in the UFC. So this is someone a little bit more on his level. Guskov even has more overall experience than Pauga in MMA. But if Pauga can apply his game plan, he can wear anybody down. We've seen him smother guys up against the cage for 3 rounds and kind of win on control time. And if he does that here, he could definitely get the win because Guskov's cardio looked questionable in his last fight. Zach was able to beat Jordan Wright, but Wright has struggled to get a win in the UFC. He uses good pressure, looks for a lot of takedowns, does leave his head on the center line, and sometimes he kind of dips his head down whenever he throws punches, and the counters are available, like a knee or anything up the middle. We saw him eating some shots in his last fight. He has only one win by knockout, and that's his only win on his record. I'll give him this. He's made a lot of improvements from the Tough Show, and he kept landing the bigger shots in the first 2 rounds, but he got out volumed against Bukakis, however you say his name, Modestus Bukakis. But he did get out volumed, and he shows 63% takedown accuracy, 58% striking defense. Oh, sorry, that's 63% striking accuracy, 58% striking defense. I thought maybe I said takedown. I don't know. I might have messed up. 9% takedown accuracy. So he shoots a lot, but doesn't get a lot of takedowns. He's never been taken down yet in the UFC, but nobody's really tried. He lands 4.44 strikes per minute on average while absorbing 2.72. And he definitely had the cardio advantage in this matchup for sure. Which could swing the fight in his favor. These guys have the same reach, no advantages there either way. And he's taking on Bogdan Guskov. He is 31 years old. He's 6'3" with a 76-inch reach. He is 14-3 and 0-1 in the UFC, and he's a plus 125 underdog. And I'm actually a fan of this guy's, man. He's definitely not the first fighter to have a bad, debut in the UFC. All of his wins have been by finish, 12 knockouts and 2 submissions. He's definitely got the power advantage. He has nice boxing, but we saw in his debut, man, he has a lot of work to do. He wasn't checking the leg kicks. He got taken down relatively easily, by Ozdemir, who's not really known as a wrestler. He didn't even try to defend the rear naked choke whenever it was coming in. You could tell he wasn't used to having any trouble, in his fights, any adversity. Now I want him to do well. I want to see him win. Before his last fight, I was thinking he was going to be a big deal in the UFC. I thought he would probably win against Ozdemir. But to be fair, Ozdemir would destroy Pauga as well. So I mean, it doesn't mean it doesn't mean it doesn't mean anything really. Because Guskov took a fight on short notice, jumped up all the way to the top of the division. You can't blame him for dropping that fight. Just hope he makes the improvements. Where was I at? He has decent head movement, uses a lot of feints, throws a nice 1-2 down the middle that he hurts guys with. it doesn't look like he puts very much on those punches, man. But he's knocked a lot of guys out, um, with just these light shots. And he's been fighting a lot of Russians. Throws good calf kicks for a big guy. Very dangerous ground and pound from top position. It's kind of a tough pick for me, man. I feel like this fight could go either way. It's either Guskov by first round knockout or Pauga by unanimous decision if he gets it out of the first round. And Guskov could have made the adjustments, man. So I feel like it's a close fight. I feel like it's smarter just to take the value on the underdog, and take Guskov. He's beaten a lot of tough Russian guys and stuff like that before the UFC. Maybe he'll feel a little bit more comfortable this time out. Maybe he'll have a full camp, and I'm gonna take him to win by first round knockout. Um, but it is a close fight, man. Close enough to where I'm not really. I mean, I'll put Guskov in a couple of my big parlays, but I'm not going to get heavily invested in it. Not going to put a play on him or anything. I do have another underdog on this card that I'm going to put a little bit of money on, though. Turn this damn heater off. Anyways, so next up we got Devin Clark taking on Marcin Prachnio. And Devin Clark is 33 years old. He's 6 foot tall with a 75-inch reach. He is 14-8 and 8-8 in the UFC. He's a minus 179 favorite. So sometimes Devin comes out and looks like he's made a ton of improvements, and then he'll come out again and look terrible in his next fight. One thing that scares me about him is he's been finished, a lot in the UFC. I think 7 times to be exact. Some of those were by submission, not all by knockout, but he does have 4 wins by knockout, 1 win by submission. He seems to have worked a lot on his wrestling. He's really been trying to implement that style of fighting in his last few fights. And that's how he's going to want to fight in this fight as well, as long as he doesn't stick his head into a guillotine choke like he did against Nchekwu. That's the game plan to beat Prachnio. This is a winnable fight for Clark. He's not going to want to strike with Prachnio. He will need to get the takedowns and look for a submission probably. He's been a 50-50 fighter, man. That though he's fought and lost to a lot of tough fighters, he's been around a while and he's made a lot of improvements and his wrestling has looked better. He was able to beat Da Jung. That was an impressive win because nobody thought he was going to win that fight. His best win probably was over Alonzo Minifield, I think. When I think about it, I don't know that if they ran it back, if that would happen. I doubt it, but. Other than that, most of his wins have been over guys who are not in the UFC anymore, or just didn't make it, didn't get wins in the UFC. He shows 56% striking accuracy and 44% striking defense, 34% takedown accuracy and 61% takedown defense. Lands and absorbs on average about the same amount of strikes per minute at 2.99 and 2.95. So not a whole lot of volume coming from him. He's going to have a 1-inch reach advantage that could serve him well in this fight. But he will be at a 3-inch height disadvantage. And he's taking on Marcin Prachnio. He's 35 years old, 6'3" with a 74-inch reach. He is 16-7 and 3-5 in the UFC, and he's a plus 148 underdog. 11 wins by knockout, 1 win by submission. Marcin is a world-class striker. People may not want to admit it for whatever reason. Everyone was really hating on this guy because he lost a couple fights. He does have the better striking technique than Clark. He's got a karate type style. He's made improvements. He's learned, after those couple of knockout losses that he took, to fight much safer. In his fight with William Knight just couldn't get anything going. Marcin ate him up with leg kicks until he could barely stand. Marcin has a win over Khalil Roundtree, man, which is, pretty impressive in hindsight. His footwork looked much improved and he's very effective with his kicks, and the way he throws his kicks, it's kind of hard to tell which way he's going with them. If anything, I will say one thing about him. He was doing well enough on the feet against Vitor Petrino that Petrino had to take him down and find a submission because he was having success on the feet, man. And I may be a bit biased because I'm more of a fan of Prachnio's because I used to watch him in ONE FC and stuff like that. I've been following him for a while, and I would rather see him win this fight. And also, I know he watches my videos sometimes or whatever, so I don't I don't want to say too much bad stuff about a guy or anything like that. But he's never shot a takedown in the UFC. I think he should try and mix that up a little bit, give guys a little something else to think about. He shows 55% striking accuracy, 54% striking defense, pretty close there. 55% takedown defense, and lands at a pretty high clip of 5.39 strikes per minute on average, while absorbing 3.25. The situation with this fight for me is I'm not going to be betting on this fight. I'll be cheering for prachnio. I'm kind of a fan of his, like I said, and um, I'm going to be picking Clark to win though. I think he's going to get the takedowns and get a decision win, but I hope prachnio wins, just because I'm more of a fan of his. Next up, we got Daniel Marcos taking on Archie Long, Corey Long. I don't know how to say his name right. Uh, Aoriqileng. uh, Anyways, Daniel Marcos is. I'm just gonna call um, is it Archie Long? Is that how you say it? Man, I had it down the last time I did a video. I'm gonna call him Archie Long. I think that's closer to than what I was saying. Um, Daniel Marcos is 30 years old. He's 5'7" with a 69-inch reach. He is 15-0 and 2-0 in the UFC, and he's a minus 195 favorite. I like this guy, man. He beat a tough guy in Davy Grant in his last fight, man. It was a close fight. I think Marcos won on damage mostly. He had a nice knockout before that. Amazing kickboxing, nice footwork and head movement. 8 wins by knockout. Never won or lost a fight by submission. He went 6-0 as an amateur as well, so he's on a 21 fight win streak. Good power in his hands. Marcos throws good front kicks up the middle. He's landed those in his last 3 fights in a row. He's very fast. Seems to have good takedown defense, but we haven't seen him against any super high level wrestlers yet. Goes to the body a lot with his punches. Good knees and elbows in the clinch. Those long combinations. Uses his jab very well. Both these guys have the same reach, but Marcos is better at using his and managing distance. Great counter striking. Fights very patiently. Doesn't make a lot of mistakes. Throws great calf kicks. Great striking defense. Good at checking kicks. What else, man? He shows 47% striking accuracy and 70% striking defense, which is pretty impressive as far as the defense goes, anyway. 50% takedown accuracy and 89% takedown defense. Lands 4.88 strikes per minute on average while absorbing 2.70. He's very good at using his feints to set up his strikes. Very impressive, man. If he keeps it on the feet, man, I think he's going to win this fight. And like I said, his takedown defense is pretty good, man. So he's taking on Archie Long. He is 30 years old, 5'7" with a 69-inch reach. He is 25-11 and 3-3 in the UFC, and he's a plus 160 underdog. So I had money on this guy in his last fight, and it paid off big time. But Johnny Munoz doesn't belong in the UFC. I don't think he goes out there and he tries to pull guard the entire fight. He'll go out and have a really good first round, and then I don't know if he just gasses or what, but it was an embarrassingly bad performance for Johnny Munoz. All 3 of Archie Long's wins have been over guys who don't belong in the UFC and couldn't get wins in the UFC. So you have to think about that when considering putting money on him. He has 9 wins by knockout and no wins by submission, but he has been submitted 3 times. Man, he's very tough. He pushes a good pace and whatnot, but I don't think his wrestling is going to be good enough here to get Marcos down. And on the feet, I think it's Marcos all day. I mean, he may have a power advantage. He does hit pretty hard. But I do have trouble seeing a way for him to win this fight, man. His losses in the UFC have been to tough guys, though. Cody Durden, Jeff Molina. By the way, Jeff Molina, man, it really sucks that Jeff Molina has been out so long because of the whole James Krause situation. Molina was on a 3-fight win streak, and he's a really good fighter, so it sucked to see that happen. I hope he comes back one day. I don't know what's going on with him. If anybody knows, let me know. But where was I at? Oh, but so Archie Long's last loss was to Amin Zahabi, who's kind of an underrated fighter, man. That was a nasty knockout. He did lose the first round against Munoz as well. He did get taken down a little bit and kind of controlled. Um, his takedown defense hasn't looked very good. He stands really heavy and flat-footed in his stance, so there's not a lot of movement. So he's there to be hit, and he's there to be leg kicked as well. And Marcos is going to use his really good footwork and dance circles around this guy probably, and I don't know if he's going to get a knockout, man. I'm going to take Marcos to win by decision pretty dominantly, but anything could happen. I guess he could catch Archie Long, coming in with a big shot and put him out. But I think Archie Long's tough enough that this is going to go to decision, and Marcos is going to win. Next up, we got Jeremiah Wells taking on Max Griffin. Jeremiah Wells is 37 years old, 5'9" with a 74-inch reach. He is 12-3-1 and 4-1 in the UFC. He's a minus 210 favorite. Yeah, he has 5 wins by knockout, 4 wins by submission. So I've made a lot of money betting on Jeremiah Wells, but we've seen in his last few fights that there are some holes showing up in his game. We've seen him go from being that big knockout puncher guy to a guy who's constantly looking for takedowns. Matthew Simmelsberger hurt Wells in every round in that fight, and Wells somehow still got the decision, which I was glad because I had money on Wells, but um, it just wasn't a good look getting dropped in every round, you know. But and he was winning dominantly in his last fight against Carlston Harris before he made a mistake and shot a takedown with his head out on the outside, and cost himself the win there, man. And he's very fast and explosive early, has big power in his hands. But his striking is a bit weird. He does a lot of jumping into the pocket, winging wide shots, kind of awkwardly. But when he lands, he knocks guys out. So, it works for him sometimes. He's a very strong grappler, great body lock takedowns, really nice jiu-jitsu, nasty chokes. Because of how powerful he is, man. You can just tell by his frame how powerful he is. He's short and stocky for the weight class. And that's why I think he has to strike the kind of way he does, because most of his opponents are taller than him and have quite a bit of reach on him, and it's just kind of hard for him to get on the inside. He's not the best at it, so he blitzes in, and comes in at weird angles and stuff like that. Um, and just you can he does kind of wrestle himself into exhaustion. He was able to keep going in third, but you can tell that by in the third round of the Carlson Harris fight, you could just tell how heavy his arms were, from all that wrestling and stuff like that. The way he was throwing his punches and everything, you could just tell that his arms were super heavy. Um, just saying, there's something to look out for, man. He's very good. This is a winnable fight for him for sure. He has the power advantage. He's the better grappler and wrestler. But I do worry about him in the third round, and he's fighting a guy who's fought all the tough guys in the division here, and Wells shows 46% striking accuracy, 48% striking defense. He's never been taken down in the UFC. Doesn't land a lot of volume at 2.52 strikes per minute on average while absorbing 1.14, which is a good number. It's hard to hit him when he's constantly shooting for takedowns, so that makes sense. He averages 3.89 takedowns per 15 minutes on average, which is another great number. He's usually good for the over on takedowns if you're a Prize Picks better or any of those sites that do that. I don't know. That's the one I use, Prize Picks, but he's taking on Max Griffin. He is 38 years old, 5'11" with a 76-inch reach. He is 19-10 and 7-8 in the UFC, and he's a plus 170 underdog. He has 9 wins by knockout, 2 wins by submission. He's never been submitted, and he has only been finished one time, and that was by Colby Covington a long time ago. As far as advantages in this fight, I think he does have the more technical, better boxing, but the power advantage probably goes to Wells. Max is going to have a 2-inch reach advantage in this fight, and Max is also a shorter, stockier, welterweight. I could see a world where Max wins this fight if he could keep it on the feet and stay away from those Hail Mary shots that Wells throws. I could see Wells gassing himself out looking for takedowns as well for 2 rounds, and Max landing some big shots late and winning this fight. It's definitely not out of the realm of possibility, that's for sure. Part of me actually would rather see Max win this fight, but on paper, Wells should win this fight. It's been a while since we've seen Griffin fight as as strong of a grappler as Wells, so I will say it definitely wasn't a good feeling, having money on Jeremiah Wells and $2,000 on Jeremiah Wells and watch him go out there and get dropped in every round against Simmelsberger, even though he won. It was still a not a good feeling, and it's kind of made me very wary about, picking him and putting money on him, So maybe that's why I'm iffy on this fight, man. But Griffin shows 49% takedown or striking accuracy, 49%, and lands and absorbs about the same amount of strikes per minute on average at 4.09 and 3.94. It says he averages 1.48 takedowns per 15 minutes, but I can't remember the last time he shot a takedown. Maybe against Tim. Did he take down Tim Means? I think he took down Tim Means. Griffin does slow down a bit as well, especially when people are trying to grapple him. I won't be getting heavily invested in this fight. I'm going to pick Wells to win by decision. I think he's going to use his wrestling and try to get takedowns, and probably most likely by the third round, both these guys will be super tired. But I think Wells will be able to pull it out and get a decision here. Next up, we got Loma Lookboonmee taking on Bruno Brasil. And Loma is 28 years old, 5'1", with a 61.5-inch reach. She is 8-3 and 5-2 in the UFC, and she's a minus 220 favorite. And this is one of my favorite female fighters. She has some of the best Muay Thai, in women's MMA, in my opinion. The elbows, the leg sweeps, very good in the clinch. She's always at a size disadvantage, so it's nothing she's not used to. And we have seen her at times kind of bully bigger fighters. She has a win over Denise Gomes, who went on to do some big things. And we've seen Loma make improvements and adjustments from fight to fight. She throws nice front kicks up the middle, very fast, hard calf kicks, great inside trips up against the cage. She did get her first submission win last time out over Elise Reed. She has one win by knockout, and so not a big finisher. That's the only finish on her. Two finishes on her record: one knockout, one submission. Sorry. Great elbows from top position. She has great headlock kind of hip tosses that she uses. Still kind of developing in the grappling and jiu-jitsu department, but does get a lot of takedowns, honestly, for someone who's not really known for wrestling or grappling. Everything she throws is just kind of perfect technique, very technically sound on the feet. She's good at slipping punches and countering. And even though she doesn't have a lot of finishes on her record, she does tend to do damage, man, and have her opponents bleeding. I think she busted open Elise Reed. I think she busted open Denise Gomes in that fight, which looks good for the judges, man. Whenever her opponents are bleeding and stuff. So she shows 59% striking accuracy and 53% striking defense, 74% takedown defense, averages 2 takedowns per 15 minutes, and lands on average 4.14 strikes per minute while absorbing 2.58. And it's been about a year, so I'm sure she's made more improvements, and I'm looking forward to seeing one of my favorite fighters fight again, man. And I'm not sure. Didn't she have? She's had a few fights fall out. I don't think it's. I'm sure she's been in camps most of the time that she's been out. I guess not. I guess it just. I wonder if she had an injury or something she's coming off of to be out that long, basically a year. Whoa, just knocked over something. Anyways, she's taking on Bruna Brazil. She is 30 years old, 5'6", with a 65.5-inch reach, and she is 9-3-1 and 1-1 in the UFC, and she's a plus 178 underdog. So one thing to know right off the bat is all three of her losses have been by knockout. She has 3 wins by knockout and 2 wins by submission. She's going to have 5 inches of height and 4 inches of reach advantage in this fight. She had a really nice head kick knockout win on the Contender Series, so there was kind of a lot of hype on her coming into the UFC. And then she got destroyed by Denise Gomes. And she stands very tall and leaves her chin out there. Her kicks are one of her best weapons. Her size advantage could play a factor in this fight, man. We could see a situation where the bigger fighter is just too big and strong here. So it's one reason I'm kind of staying away from this fight. Because sometimes you just don't really realize how big that size difference is until you see them in the cage together. But I haven't been very impressed with what Brazil has shown us up to this point. She did beat a 5-0 fighter her last time out, but really that's not a lot of experience. So it was her first fight in the UFC as well, so it's not like she's had a lot of high level experience. Her opponent anyway, and not really that big a deal to me. So she's gonna want to look for the takedowns in this fight, try and get a submission. But she doesn't really fight that way very often. She's there to be leg kicked. Her footwork looked good last time out. Looked a lot improved. She was angling off well, not backing straight up. She was doing most of the work with her kicks pretty much in that fight. She landed a lot of nice kicks. She hasn't really had enough fights for me yet to go over the numbers, at least in the UFC. She's good at fighting long and using her reach. Throws mostly nice straight shots. I do worry quite a bit about the huge size advantage, but I do feel that Lookboonmee is the better striker if she can deal with that reach. So I am going to be picking Lookboonmee. I'm too scared to put minus what is she, minus 225. Yeah, too scared to lay that price on her. I won't be getting heavily invested in this fight. Maybe a parlay, maybe not. She is fighting someone who is way bigger than her, but I'll take Lookboonmee to win by decision, like she usually does. Next up, we got Giles taking on prates. And Giles is 31 years old. He's 6 foot tall with a 74-inch reach. He is 16-5 and 7-5 in the UFC, and he's a plus 180 underdog. And yeah, his record as of late hasn't looked good, but look at who he's lost to, man. He lost to Duplessis, the current champ. He lost to Michael Morales, undefeated. Gabriel Bonfim, a guy who was undefeated at the time. Trevin, he beat Preston Parsons, who just beat Matthew Semmelsberger. So I mean, I guess that was a tough fight for him, but he ended up outlasting Parsons and just kind of showing that he had some decent skills with grappling as well in that fight. He has 6 wins by knockout and 5 wins by submission. He actually has nice sweeps and a decent ground game. He's used to guys trying to get him down. His last 3 opponents have fought that way. They've all been trying to get him down. He actually has a win over Roman Delice up a weight class, which is pretty impressive. Obviously, Trevin's no joke. This fight will probably play out on the feet. This is where both these guys like to fight. But Trevin may want to look for his own takedowns in this fight. He's fighting a guy with with a lot of kickboxing and Muay Thai experience. A really high level background in striking. So I think Trevin should mix it up. I don't know if he'll be smart enough to do that. I'm a fan of Giles because he's from Texas. I want him to win, but he doesn't typically fight the way that he will need to win this fight. And he does take. I mean, he doesn't care. I'll give him that. He's taken a lot of tough fights, man, and most of them haven't gone his way. But he's not scared to fight anybody. So give that to him. Props for that. He's taking on Prates. He is 30 years old, 6'1" with a 78-inch reach. He is 17-6, and this is going to be his UFC debut. And he's a minus 220 favorite. And like I said, Muay Thai background, lots of K1 kickboxing experience, 12 wins by knockout, 3 wins by submission. Has been submitted 3 times, so like I said, that's probably the weaker part of his game, submission awareness and defense. He's on a 7-fight win streak. Fights well from both stances. He's going to have a 4-inch reach advantage, very good at using his range and fighting long, and very technical striking. Obviously really powerful. Stays very light on his toes. He did get taken down on the Contender Series, but was able to get back up and get the win. He's the better striker. He has the power advantage, very accurate with his strikes. Throws a lot of volume as well. I'm going to be picking Prates to win this fight, man, by knockout. I don't think Giles' wrestling will be good enough to get Carlos down and keep him there. But you never know, man. But I do think Carlos Prates is going to win this fight. I'll take him to win by second round knockout. Sorry. Next up, we got Albert Duraev taking on Robert Bryczek. Hopefully that's right. Albert Duraev is 35 years old, 5'11" with a 75-inch reach. He is 16-5 and 2-2 in the UFC, and he's a minus 170 favorite. So on paper, everyone has kind of hyped this guy up in the past. He's Russian and all that stuff, but his results in the UFC haven't been very impressive. He's been finished in every loss he's had. He's been knocked out 4 times and submitted once overall in his career. As far as his wins, he has 3 wins by knockout and 9 wins by submission. No finishes in the UFC yet, though. And I think if him and Kopylov ran it back, Kopylov would probably win. I will give Duraev this. He had fought a lot of tough competition before the UFC for sure. He does have decent wrestling and great submissions. He got out hustled by the Iron Turtle. Man, that was honestly didn't expect the Iron Turtle to out wrestle him like he did and end up finishing him with with the submission. Not how I saw that fight going. I thought the Iron Turtle might beat him up on the feet with his boxing, but so I don't know that Duraev's wrestling is all that that everybody has been trying to make it out to be in the past. He loads up on all his punches, throws nothing but big shots, which can wear on his gas tank. The only reason he won the Chitty fight, the Chitty Nijikawani fight, was because Chitty decided to go out there and do absolutely nothing. So what it comes down to is that I'm not very high on this guy, but he is fighting someone making their UFC debut here, so he does have a chance. He shows 40% striking accuracy, 60% striking defense, 30% takedown accuracy, and 67% takedown defense. And as far as the strikes goes, he lands and absorbs about the same amount of strikes per minute at 2.99 and 3.01. This is all going to come down to how good this new guy's takedown defense is, probably. He's taking on Robert Bryczek. He is 33 years old, 6 foot tall. We don't have a reach on him here. Um, and I had wrote down his reach in centimeters, and I meant to transfer that over or whatever, and I never did. Sorry. Um, 6 foot tall. He's 17-5, and it's going to be his UFC debut. And he's a plus 140 underdog. And this is another guy that's been fighting, tough Russian and Polish guys before the UFC. 11 wins by knockout, 1 win by submission. This dude is powerful, man. You can tell by the way he's built. He won his last 5 fights by knockout, and it looked like some of the guys he was fighting when I watched a lot of tape on this guy. It looked like a lot of the guys he fought were for sure on steroids, and it's crazy. This guy used to fight at welterweight, man. He's a pretty big dude. Lots of first round finishes, but he has gone to decision quite a few times as well. He's good at managing the distance, uses his jab very well, throws fast combinations. He for sure has the better striking, good head movement, great at slipping punches and countering. He's going to have the power advantage here all day. And I went back to his last loss, and the one thing I saw in that fight was that Robert was getting eaten up with leg kicks, man. Didn't seem to have an answer. Didn't seem to be checking the leg kicks at all, so hopefully he's worked on that. It was quite a while back. Um, I watched a lot of his fights, man. Particularly, I went and watched all of his losses that I could, and I was trying to see, how good his takedown defense was, and I couldn't find any examples of it, man. To be honest with you, most of his fights were, kind of like kickboxing matches where nobody was shooting for takedowns, and or they didn't get the chance to shoot a takedown because they got knocked out really quick. So I am leaning a bit here because I can't really speak on his wrestling or takedown defense from the research that I did. Supposedly, according to the organization that he used to fight in, Octagon, on their website, it says he has good wrestling, good takedown defense, but I couldn't find an example of it. But I am going to go with Bryczek to win this fight. I'm going to take him as the underdog. It's a good price. I think he's actually like a plus 167 now. I think that's what I put in my. I got a small play on him. I think it's at plus 167. I'm going to take him to win by knockout, man, round one. I think he can knock out Albert Duraev. Next up, we got Michael Johnson taking on Darius Flowers. This is another fight that I was kind of struggling with myself a little bit for a minute. Michael Johnson is 37 years old, getting close to 38 now. 5'10" with a 73.5-inch reach. He is 21-19 and 13-15 in the UFC, and he's a minus 125 favorite. He's been in the UFC since 2010. He's a legend. They don't talk about it much anymore, but I remember back in the day, I can't remember who his coach was early on, but they always talked about, Johnson's style was like a Dutch kickboxing type style. And it is really clean striking, man. Great striking, throws nice straight shots, great kicks to all levels. He arguably won the Jamie Malarkey fight, and his last fight, everybody was giving me shit for picking Vieira, to win. I picked Vieira to win by submission, and everybody was chewing me out, saying Vieira wasn't going to get him down, and this and that. And Johnson came out and was winning that fight, man. I think I had a play on Vieira, and Johnson was winning that fight, looking great, and then Fajea landed that big overhand right and put Johnson out cold, man. It was kind of unexpected, um, but he was looking good before that. I mean, for sure, he was definitely winning that fight. He has 9 wins by knockout and 2 wins by submission. He has a lot of questionable losses on his record. The Clay Guida loss was one I really couldn't wrap my head around. This is Clay Guida, really late in his career. I thought Johnson would definitely be able to handle business there. Um, but but also has some impressive wins, mixed in with his record. He's got a win over Andre Fili, Dustin Poirier, Edson Barboza, Tony Ferguson, and that was Tony Ferguson back in the day, not like recently. Obviously, those were all a long time ago, but needless to say, he's still a very tough guy, and he's got some good wins on his record. He's only been knocked out a few times, but does have a lot of submission losses on his record, 9 to be exact, and he's going to have a 2.5 reach advantage in this fight. Very fast combinations, man, in close. Good at using his reach and keeping guys at the end of his punches. His takedown defense looked on point in his last fight as well. Great counter striking. He's very fast. He was throwing 3-4 punch combinations to Fajeda's one punch. When they were in the pocket. It's a little scary picking a guy who's been around this long, especially coming off a nasty knockout like that. It's things have to catch up with people sometimes, man, and you never know when it's going to happen. He is 100%, the better striker out of these two and the more technically sound. He may be 100% the more skilled fighter all the way around here. Um, He's taking on Darius Flowers. He is 29 years old, 5'9" with a 71-inch reach. He is 12-6-1 and 0-1 in the UFC, and he's a plus 103 underdog. And we haven't got to see Flowers yet in a legit situation. You know, he made his debut up on short notice, up a weight class against Jake Matthews. Um, I think he knew he wasn't in shape and didn't have a full camp and was just went out there and went for it as hard as he could. You know, trying to get a finish and gassed himself out. You know, and didn't really have a shot at winning that fight. And you know, he had a really long amateur career as well. He went 11-4-1 as an amateur. Most of his losses have come by submission. He's never lost a decision. He has the power advantage, 8 wins by knockout, 1 win by submission. Definitely has kind of a wild style of striking. And I think this is possibly his first fight at 155, actually. I was looking at some of the guys he fought in the past, and some of them showed like their last weigh-ins on Tapology were like at 185 and 205. So he's fought some big guys, man, and he's only 5'9". So, um, you know, I mean, I don't know if he's going to be able to make 155, honestly, but I'm assuming he's coming in the best shape of his life, and we don't know what we're going to get. You know, can he make the weight? You know, will the cutting the weight affect him really, really badly? His fights in the LFA were all at middleweight, so he's good at lateral movement, very explosive, does have nice trip takedowns. Johnson has the advantage in this fight on the feet, you know, and he has good enough takedown defense that Flowers may not be able to get him down. Where I think Flowers could have success is that he doesn't really strike technically. He will wait in and blitz and blitz in with like really wild strikes, and sometimes people that do that land shots they shouldn't. So he could land a big shot, man. He definitely has a shot at it. The fight worries me. You know, Johnson is the better, more skilled fighter, but how's the chin going to hold up? The lines are really close, and my natural instinct is to take the dog from a betting standpoint, but you know, I'll probably stay away from this fight. And as far as the pick go, I'm going to pick Johnson to win by decision. Um, but yeah, I mean, this is going to be if Johnson loses this fight, if he gets knocked out in this fight or something, you know, we're going to be looking, you know, maybe to the at the end of his, you know, getting close to the end of his career. Unfortunately, if he loses this fight, you know, his record would be 21-20, and just hate seeing guys that were so good back in the day, you know, going out with a freaking, you know, a losing record or a, you know, 50-50 record, you know. So hopefully he does win this fight. Next up, we got Rodolfo Vieira taking on Armen Petrosyan. This is a fight that was supposed to happen quite a while back, and I don't understand why everybody is. I'll talk about it in a minute. Rodolfo Vieira is 34 years old, 6 foot tall with a 73-inch reach. He is 9-2 and 4-2 in the UFC, and he's a minus 104, you know, slight underdog. Or actually, I think it might be. I think that's changed, but minus 104. He's like minus 110, between minus 110 and minus 105 somewhere. That's where he's been staying at. So he's primarily known for his jiu-jitsu. It's world class. Had shown some bad cardio in the past, but seems to have improved that quite a bit. And looking back on his record, I don't see any wins that stand out to me as great wins. He barely got by Cody Brundage, and Cody hasn't really looked all that good ever. He has 100% takedown defense, but Armen is a kickboxer. You know, he won't be looking for takedowns. Vieira has worked on his boxing. It has seemed a lot better than it used to be, but he stands no chance against Armen Petrosyan on the feet at all. He is a 7-time jiu-jitsu champion, 8 wins by submission, 1 win by knockout. He actually struggled quite a bit, man, against Cody Brundage and got beat up, man, you know, through most of the fight, which isn't a good look, you know, based on what Brundage has done in his UFC career. But, you know, he will have the grappling advantage, but honestly, he doesn't have the best takedowns. You know, they are more like the jiu-jitsu type takedowns rather than the wrestling type takedowns. Um, you know, he usually only gets the takedowns when guys are super gassed out, and Petrosyan's not going to get gassed out. Um, you know, and he doesn't have Vieira doesn't really have very good takedown accuracy, to be honest. You know, that's part of the reason that I feel so strongly for Petrosyan in this fight. Vieira will have a 2-inch reach advantage. He's taking on Armen Petrosyan. He is 33 years old, 6'3", with a 71-inch reach. He is 8-2 and 3-1 in the UFC, and he's a minus 120. I think he's a favorite still. I don't remember, but minus 120 favorite. This guy's an amazing kickboxer. 5 wins by knockout, no wins or losses by submission. No finishes in the UFC yet, but he has hurt a lot of guys. The Gregory Rodrigues fight was insane. That was a war. Both those guys are so tough. I've been a fan of this guy since his fight on the Contender Series. Man, he's very tall and rangy. Moves in and out in the pocket very well. Really good at setting up his strikes. With and very good at counter striking as well, even in close in the pocket. He's very good with his head movement and twisting away from punches and stuff like that, landing his own. Um, even though he has more success when he's the one pushing forward, he's pretty good everywhere on the feet, man. Definitely has the advantages everywhere here. He's pretty good at getting back to his feet if he is taken down. Lands over 5 strikes per minute. Great kicks to the body. He hurt a lot of guys with those kicks to the body. Nasty right hand. Great cardio. Fights very well in the clinch. The fight in the Contender Series was a nasty knockout, man, and he fought through the takedowns there, and he looked great, and he has really improved a lot, on his takedown defense, since being in the UFC. And I know these guys' strengths are kind of each other's weaknesses, but the reason I feel so strongly that Petrosyan wins this fight, like I said, is that Vieira has 26% takedown accuracy, so his takedowns aren't that good, man. And I'm going to be taking Petrosyan to win this fight by knockout here. Um, I think he's going to finally get his first finish in the UFC, man, and I'll take him to win by second round TKO. Next up, we got Brad Tavares taking on Gregory Rodrigues. And Tavares is 36 years old. He's 6'1" with a 74-inch reach. He is 20-8 and 15-8 in the UFC, and he's a plus 190 underdog. 5 wins by knockout, 2 wins by submission. And Brad hasn't been looking very good lately. In my opinion, he barely got past Weidman. I thought he would destroy Weidman. Weidman had been out for years, coming back after the leg stuff and all that stuff. And I don't know, man. He's been knocked out 4 times in the UFC. He has all the skills. He's well rounded. He's fought everyone, Izzy, all the tough guys in the division. He does have good boxing. It's been a while since he's had a finish in the UFC, man. I think his last finish was back in like 2018. Great calf kicks. That's how he beat Weidman. He just kind of fought safe and stayed away and just threw his leg kicks out there the whole fight. He's probably the more technical striker of these two. Rodrigues is more of a brawler. That fight with Dricus du Plessis, showed how tough Brad is, man. That was a war. And he was there for the whole fight. He didn't get finished. So great takedown defense. He won the first round against Dricus as well, man. He was able to kind of reverse position and wind up on top a few times. And I wish he would try to use his wrestling more, go for takedowns, give his opponents, a little something else to think about. Because he typically just kind of goes out there and boxes, and he is in a tough spot here because on the feet, Rodrigues has a really big power advantage, and Rodrigues is also kind of a world class jiu-jitsu guy as well. So it's hard for me to say, what would be the best way for Tavares to attack this fight. Maybe it would be best for him to try and get Rodrigues down and stay on top. We haven't seen much of anything of Rodrigues on his back at all. We don't know if his jiu-jitsu is good off of his back. Brad shows 57% striking defense, 43% striking accuracy, 27% takedown accuracy. He never really shoots that often though. 82% takedown defense. As far as strikes go, he lands 3.38 strikes per minute while absorbing 3.03. And he's taking on Gregory Rodrigues. He is 31 years old, 6'3" with a 75-inch reach. He is 14-5 and 5-2 in the UFC, and he's a minus 240 favorite. And this guy is, he's one of my favorite fighters as well. And he's never in a boring fight. He doesn't fight the smartest way sometimes, though, and that can be very scary. We saw him make that mistake against Bruno Ferreira. Rather than using his grappling, which he had a big advantage in, he went out there and threw hands with a guy with big power and a guy who's knocked out all of his opponents, and he got caught and lost to a guy that was making his debut. And at that point, he was on a good little run and kind of messed it up for himself. And he may not be the most technical striker, but he does have huge power for the most part. He can take a shot as well. Take a shot to give a shot, and he does seem to be making big improvements constantly from fight to fight. 8 wins by knockout, 4 wins by submission, and he's never been submitted. World class jiu-jitsu. He's huge for the weight class. He's gonna have a 1-inch reach advantage in this fight. He did fight smart last time out. I'll give him that. A great trip takedown, passed to half guard, then into mount fairly easily. Finished him off with some big elbows from mount. Shows 100% takedown defense in the UFC, 51% striking defense, and 56% striking accuracy. Averages just over 1 knockdown per 15 minutes, with an average fight time of 7 minutes and 2 seconds, which is pretty fun. Averages 2.40 takedowns per 15 minutes according to UFC.com. Lands good volume at 6 strikes per minute on average, but does absorb almost the same amount at 5.67. And as far as takedown accuracy goes, it was 50%. And I'm going to be taking Rodrigues to win this fight. I'm going to take it to win by TKO round 2. Um, I think he's going to push forward and land some big shots and end up catching Tavares and put him away. Because that's typically how he fights, man. I think Gregory would be smart to go out there and just kind of get a takedown and not risk it. Fight smart and get the win. But he doesn't typically fight that way. He's going to go out there and make it exciting. So I got him to win by knockout round 2. Next up, we got the co-main event. Dan Ige taking on Andre Fili. Ige is 32 years old, 5'7" with a 71-inch reach. He is 17-7 and 9-6 in the UFC. And he's a minus 170 favorite. And yeah, this is good matchmaking, and I'm honestly really surprised these guys haven't fought before already. They've both been around a long time. Um, Dan has never been finished. He's tough as hell, and he's only lost to the top guys in the division. Um, his last fight, he kind of got just taken down and laid on by Bryce Mitchell, and Evloev kind of did the same thing to him. Dan is definitely a notch above most guys in this division. We saw that, and his last 2 wins, he beat guys that were on good runs, at the time, and great boxing, really dangerous in the pocket. He has 5-round cardio, likes to dig shots to the body, great uppercuts and dirty boxing in the clinch, good takedown defense. Unless you're Evloev or Bryce Mitchell. He puts out good volume, does a great job at heading guys off rather than following them. He's fought the tougher competition now, these two. 5 wins by knockout, 5 wins by submission. He's good at handling taller guys, great at getting on the inside. Does tend to kind of tuck his head when he's throwing big shots, so I'm sure Philly's going to be looking for knees. Dan's going to want to push forward, keep Philly backing up against the cage, and draw out Philly's punches so he can counter and kind of blitz him with big combinations. And he will switch stances at times back and forth a little bit, just as he's following. He kind of goes back and forth sometimes. He shows 45% striking accuracy, 57% striking defense, and 59% takedown defense, and 27% takedown accuracy. Even though it says he averages over just over 1 takedown per 15 minutes, he doesn't really fight that way very often. So I'm not sure if that's accurate or not. He does land 3.76 strikes per minute while absorbing 3.53. So pretty close on the numbers there. And he's taking on Andre Fili. He is 33 years old, 5'11" with a 74-inch reach. He is 23-10 and 11-9 in the UFC, and he's a plus 145 underdog. And I'll be the first to admit, man, I made a big mistake picking against Philly last time out. He looked amazing. Along with Almeida just kind of turning out to not be who we thought he was, in the UFC. Lucas Almeida, Philly's gonna have a 3-inch reach advantage in this fight. He's got a lot better at using his length and keeping guys at the end of his punches. He dropped Nathaniel Wood a few times. He's tall. He has 10 wins by knockout, 3 wins by submission, and he has been finished quite a few times in the UFC though, man. Twice by knockout and twice by submission. Nice counters, great high kick from the southpaw stance. His footwork looked a lot better, in those last few fights. He seems to have really loosened up and improved in a lot of ways, man. And he was eating a lot of leg kicks in the Nathaniel Wood fight, but he was making Wood pay every time he landed one of them. He's been doing a great job at using his reach and just kind of circling and throwing nice straight shots from the outside. Both these guys have a lot of things they do really well in the clinch, or in the striking, sorry. Normally I would say Dan has the power advantage, but Philly has been hurting guys lately, man, and it's hard for me to say, who has the power advantage for sure, man. And Wood did drop Philly a few times, and I think if Nathaniel Wood can do it, Dan Ige can do it as well. Because Nathaniel Wood's always fought at down at bantamweight, and he's fighting up at 145, so he's a small bantamweight. Dan definitely is going to pack a punch, and if Wood can do that, I think Dan Ige can as well. I'm taking Dan Ige to win this fight by decision, but it's going to be a great fight, man, and I wouldn't be surprised if Andre Fili won. As far as confidence level on this fight, man, I'm not super confident, man. Andre Fili's been looking really good lately. But yeah, I'm going to take Dan Ige to get the win. Next up, we got the main event. I'm gonna be keeping it kind of short on this one, man. Jack Hermannson is 35 years old, 6'1" with a 77.5-inch reach. He is 23-8 and 10-6 in the UFC, and he's a plus 172 underdog. And yeah, looking at Jack's record, man, it kind of seems like he made it. He made it pretty far up in the division without really beating any of the guys, at the top. He has some decent wins, but not like over guys who are in the top 10. I mean, his best win was over Kevin Gastelum back in 2020. He beat Chris Curtis, but Curtis isn't like ranked high up in the division really. Um, I just don't understand based on what I'm looking at how he made it to the point where he was able to fight Sean Strickland or Marvin Vittori or Jared Cannonier and all these guys that are right at the top, of the division. He does have good grappling, not a big knockout puncher. He's definitely improved his boxing quite a bit. Good fundamentals. He did a great job against Chris Curtis of just fighting smart and using his reach and not taking any risks, man. And he's going to have a 2.5-inch reach advantage in this fight. He has 10 wins by knockout and 7 wins by submission. I think his best bet here is to get the win. Would be try to get it to the ground. He's at a big power disadvantage on the feet. Honestly, I'm not really sure he would be able to get the takedowns here either. Pyfer's a pretty big dude, pretty powerful. He's gonna be hard to get down. Hermansson shows 75% takedown defense and 30% takedown accuracy. Um, I'm not really sure. I'm not really sure that he's going to be better, everywhere here. I know we haven't seen much out of Joe Pyfer, but I really do think that Joe Pyfer is as good as he thinks he is, man. So he's taking on Joe Pyfer. He's 27 years old, 6'2" with a 75-inch reach. He is 12-2 and 3-0 in the UFC, and he's a minus 210 favorite. And this is going to be his toughest opponent so far, man. But I do think he has a lot of advantages in this fight. I think he has the power advantage, the better striking. Um, has great takedown defense. 8 wins by knockout, 3 wins by submission. Most of his wins have been by finish. He's only gone to a decision one time. He's never been knocked out. He's a lifelong martial artist. Been doing jiu-jitsu since he was a little kid. Trains at a great camp, and I do see him winning this fight, man. I think he's going to win this fight by knockout. Jack could have success maybe if he can get it into the later rounds. Maybe if he could get it into the third, fourth, and fifth round. Maybe his conditioning would be better than Pyfer's. I don't know. We haven't seen Pyfer, that late into a fight yet in 5 rounds or anything. So it's going to be interesting, but I'm not sure he's going to be able to make it there, man. And I got Pyfer to win by knockout. Um, Taking a win by knockout in round 2. And that's it as far as my picks go, guys. Let me pull up my bets here real quick. If I could get this out of the way. Um, so as far as bets go for this card, man, I've got a 1-unit play on Daniel Marcos at minus 190. I got a 1-unit play on Armen Petrosyan at minus 105. And then I have a small, it's actually less than a quarter unit play on Robert Bryczek. It's plus 137. It's actually only like a $200 play. And then I've got a 2-fight parlay, which is Gregory Rodrigues and Oki, which is plus 102, and that's also a small play, quarter unit. As far as parlays go, I've got a 4-fight parlay, which is Pyfer, Petrosyan, Oki, and Daniel Marcos. That's plus 490. And then to that, I added, let's see, and then to that I added Gregory Rodrigues and Robert Bryczek, and that's a plus 1879 parlay. That's a 6-fight parlay. And then to that I added Carlos Prates, and I added Bagdasarian. I know he's not fighting now, so that's going to change the odds on this one. But it was an 8-fight parlay. I'll leave it up for a second. That way y'all can get a look at it. And then to that I added Bogdan Guskov and Jeremiah Wells, and that's a plus 13,838 parlay. It's a 10-fight parlay. Obviously, the odds are going to change because Bagdasarian's not fighting, like I just said. Um, but yeah, man, that's it, man. And is there anything else I need to go over, man? Let's take a look at this card coming up here in a couple days and make sure there's nothing I need to go over on that. For the most part, it looks like everything's the same. Yeah, it looks like everything's the same. I've gone over all this, man. Uh, Thank you guys so much, man. Please like and subscribe. It helped me out a lot. Thank you to all the new subscribers, and thank you guys for caring what I have to say as always. Um, y'all have a good one, man. I'm out of here. Make some money.